This is our grant. This is our grant information session. And I just want to make sure that folks know that we are going to be recording this. And then we will be sharing it on our YouTube channel. So if you do not want to be recorded, please remain off camera. We are not offended. We want to respect everyone's level of privacy here today. And again, welcome. So today, here is our amazing staff. Some of these folks you will hear from. I'll introduce myself. I'm LaCora Bradford Kesty. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Vice President of Community Impact here at the Women's Foundation. On the ones and twos, you'll also hear from Erica Idrova Cuesta, who is our Program Officer. You'll hear also from Hannah Elias, our Senior Manager for Systems Database Administration. Behind the scenes, we have the lovely Tamika Davidson rounding out the Community Impact team as our Community Impact Manager. And then also behind the scenes is Maria Polly, our accounting clerk, helping make sure that we get grant dollars to you all. And then we have the amazing Alexa McIndoe behind the scenes, helping run slides and things like that. So just welcome to the staff. All right, so why are we here today? Three things. We are going to offer information about the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Two, we're going to provide a deeper understanding about the girlsBEST Fund. And then lastly, we're going to review all the application components, our online grant portal process, and a nice little timeline for you all. Okay, so here's a little bit of information about the Women's Foundation, our mission, vision, and our values. Our mission, we are a statewide community foundation with a mission to end systemic inequities and drive innovation for gender and racial justice. Our values are really around hope, generosity, courage, inclusion, and belonging. And we really do believe in a vision, a world of equal opportunity where all women, gender expansive, people across intersecting identities and their families hold the power to create and lead safe and prosperous lives. So here's our framework. We use an intersectional equity framework. So in 2019, the foundation expanded its mission to include racial equity, capturing the centrality of our intersectional equity framework. And this framework really guides all of our internal and external work at the foundation. This framework is a power analysis to really create the conditions so that all people have what they need to thrive. And so philanthropy and organizations seeking to advance their impact and equity must really think about how they put intersectional equity into practices to create equitable access to rights, opportunities, and resources. And so when you really look at this diagram, you see the interconnecting circles, right? And you're looking at gender, we need to ask ourselves, how are women, girls, and gender expansive people differently or disproportionately affected, represented, or impacted? And we need to think about how and why those gender norms are limited or impact our equity work. We need to do the same thing when we talk about race. How are our Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islanders differently or disproportionately affected, represented, or impacted? Again, how and why, and what does that look like? And the same thing for place and additional identities. I know that this is sometimes new to folks, and folks are like, how do I actualize this? And it can be really heady, but really, I think Audre Lorde does a really great job in a quote summing up what is intersectional equity. And Audre Lorde says, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. And this is really what this work is talking about. How can we make sure that all of the identities, all of the intersecting things that make us who we are connected? Because again, we can't separate one of these identities from another. They need to be working together. And now I'm going to pass it over to Erica.
Thank you, LaCora. Welcome, everyone. We are going to cover now the Girls Best grant making overview. And for many who are new to this work, welcome. Girls Best Fund started back in 2002, and it was shaped by the research and listening in 14 communities around the state. We started this work investing in girls as the best way to build opportunities and to boost their future economic success. And since launching, the foundation has funded 7 cohorts of Girls Best Partners and we've invested $5.9 million since then and 159 grants granted to girl-led and girl-driven programs. And since then, we've reached about 48,000 young women and their families. So it's been around for a number of years, and we've been able to support a large number of organizations across the state, and want to continue that today. So what is the ethos and the theory of this program? It starts with the participants, right? So increasing their awareness and their agency. These are the stages that Girls Best program is looking at to increase activism and advocacy so that young women and girls have this pathway to economic well-being. And there are 4 program tracks that this program has consistently tracked. We ask organizations to choose at least one, and if your organization does more than one, great. You are welcome to choose more than one of these program tracks to best describe your work with girls. And the first program track is our academic programs. So these are programs that help girls stay in school and pursue college or future career goals. Examples like personal financial skills, like budgeting, financial planning, saving, and accounting. Also, school-based programs that help girls excel in math, science, technology, and other subjects that girls may be underrepresented or excluded. And then for the second program track, we have entrepreneurial programs. So these are programs that teach and support girls in business planning and development, teaching an understanding of the financial systems for business development, including loans and grants and building credit, and then teaching about sales, marketing, communications for businesses. The third program track that has been supported through this Girls Best program are programs that build girls' employment skills and encourage them to seek high-paying, high-skilled careers like careers in construction and trades, as well as healthcare and production. Um, so those are some examples. And then for the last program track is public education and advocacy programs. So these are programs that which girls are organizing issues that impact their economic opportunities, like access to reproductive services and family planning and sexual health and ending violence. So some of those educational pieces also include areas where they can impact their self-esteem and cultural awareness. So there's a few examples that have come up over the years are graphic design, videography, storytelling, and music. So really some of these examples are not limited. There's been an expansion over the years to prioritize areas like STEM and arts and entrepreneurship. And over the years, as we've been able to track this impact, we've learned that there has been some notable practices to strengthen girls' confidence, and some organizations have used like financial literacy, mentoring, leadership development, building on the cultural strengths of girls, having collaboration and partnership with other organizations doing similar work, adding a component of healing and wellness, and then that multi-generational approach as well has been areas of practices that organizations have been able to implement and adapt to sustain their work. And I just want to highlight Women's Initiative for Self-Empowerment, an incredible organization in St. Paul. They've shared that over time, their work has had a ripple effect with their participants, not only applying what they've learned through their programs, but in their personal lives. They've also been passing that knowledge on to others in their communities and their families. One participant shared that they see themselves as leaders and motivators to their peers, and they also reported that they can use the skills that they've learned to be mentors to others. So that's just that ripple effect that the Girls Best program has accomplished over the years and continues to support communities, meeting them where they're at.
All right,
Um,
we're going to get into some nitty-gritty details about grant information and timeline. So, this is a multi-year grants program. This is one of the Women's Foundation's oldest program and only multi-year opportunity. We are entering into cohort 8, so I'm super excited. This, as Erica mentioned before, our continued focus is around STEAMY. We heard during our 20-year anniversary of this fund from grantee partners, we listened to them and we were like, how can we strengthen this fund that we have and we've had for so long? And folks said, don't just focus on STEM because we don't want to put girls in a box. And they also said that there's a need for arts and entrepreneurship. So we calling it STEAMY is our focus. So science, technology, engineering, arts, math, and entrepreneurship. This is also for Minnesota organizations. Again, we're a statewide organization, but focused on the state of Minnesota and groups with programs serving a majority of girls. We understand that not all nonprofit organizations, especially if you're in a rural community, can't focus just on one particular demographic, but we just ask that the majority of the participants that you're serving are girls and or gender expansive folks. This is again a multi-year fund, so $30,000 per year. And so grants are up to 3 years with a renewal each year based on evidence of a satisfactory progress towards their goals and their outcomes. And then lastly, this program is designed to really support individuals at the age of 12 to 18, again, to increase their readiness around that financial security and wealth as a part of a more just economy. All right. So our grant period is we start I'm like, okay, oh my gosh, how do I say this? We start from June and then we go until what is it? June until January, February, March, April, May. Oh my goodness. Is a full year. We'll talk about renewal, and then each year our participatory grant making committee members will review. And again, everything is super simple and nothing that you're going to see from the program each year is going to be super burdensome. Anything that the Women's Foundation puts out, you're going to know exactly how we're asking folks to be able to talk about what does success look like for your organization. We this year for the grant criteria, so there's two components. So it's a $30,000 grant, but it's being split up. So there's $25,000 in general operating support for the program, and then $5,000 will be restricted to staff wellness and development. We make this restriction to really support wellness and development of the organization. We got some really great feedback because we weren't restricting it. We were saying, oh, here you go. Here's some dollars for rest and wellness. And we got some feedback from grantees that said, actually, our board was like, no, it's Gen Ops. It needs to go to the fund. And so having this designation that, yes, we want folks to actually rest and be well as they do this program work. So we restrict it. But any other dollars from the organization, again, is general operating support. All right. So we have also a seed planning grants for the work. So again, a Minnesota-based organizations and groups serving a majority of girls. The seed grants are a one-time, one-year investment of $10,000. And again, this is designed so that, again, individuals 12 to 18 will increase their readiness to create financial security and wellness. Applicants are not required to attend a site visit. noted for if you are applying for the full grant, the $30,000, we will be asking folks to participate in a site visit. But for the seed grants, we are not asking for that. Um, Organizations cannot apply for both grant opportunities at the same time. So you must choose one, whether you're going to be a seed grant for this year's fund or if you're going to be in the multi-year fund. You just have to choose one. And then I would like to add that the seed grants we offer every year of the Girls Best cohort. So new organizations are able to apply or existing organizations year after year if you're not a part of the full cohort-based grant program. And again, just making sure that you see this, that the grant size is $10,000. The grant period is one time, 1 year investment. So again, that June to May. Oh my goodness. One full fiscal year. And then again, the program serving 12 to 18. And now I'll pass it to Erica for eligibility.
Thank you. Yes, so for all grants at the foundation to be eligible, we have the requirements of it being an illegally incorporated entity, so having that 501(c)(3) status or 501(c)(4), or if you're a group and have a fiscal sponsor, that is also eligible. And then tribal nations and tribal entities are also eligible. Schools as well are eligible that are based in Minnesota. And the work itself, as Lacora mentioned, um, should be serving Minnesota residents and be based in Minnesota. In addition to these eligibility requirements, you can also be a current grantee partner or a past grantee partner to be eligible. You can also be new to the Women's Foundation. It is an open application, and any newly established organizations are also welcome to apply. Here's some examples of activities for non-eligibility. So any project within a religious institution that doesn't align with our mission and our values are not eligible. Any retroactive supporter projects or activities, individual scholarships to attend college or universities, capital campaigns, fundraising events, individuals. Again, these grants are specific for organizations. Any organization that may be deemed as discriminatory based on race, creed, color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender expression, age, physical or mental ability, veteran status, military obligation, and marital status. Any organization that limits or opposes a woman's right to self-determination. I want to highlight this note because as part of the application, we will be asking some eligibility questions before an application can be submitted, and that is because we are a pro-choice organization. So, want to make sure that your organization asks, questions around yes or no to these eligibility questions before moving forward. And then any reduction to an operating deficit, or if your organization is facing sunsetting, not compliant with the IRS standards, any partisan efforts, and then late or incomplete applications. And then while the work does differ based on each of our grant programs, these are some of the following characteristics that are pretty similar across all our grant recipients. So programs that are benefiting Minnesota women, girls, and gender expansive people. Um, and then our definition of women is anyone who identifies as a woman. So the program is inclusive of transgender, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, and all gender expansive people who experience gender-based structural harm. Organizations are and programs are in alignment with the Women's Foundation's mission and values. The organization's financial condition is stable. There's an understanding of like partnership work with other organizations. There's a commitment or an understanding to gender and racial justice using the multi-issue, multi-solution framework. Board staff, volunteers represent at least the population served and are represented in the decision-making roles of the organization. And then the inclusive organizations that value the perspectives and contributions of all people that strive to incorporate the needs and viewpoints of diverse communities in the design and implementation of their programs. So for the decision-making process, we have a participatory grant-making committee that reviews these applications and deliberates on grant recommendations to move forward. We have our research as well that the Women's Foundation conducts every 2 years on the status of women and girls and in Minnesota. And in our research, we highlight 8 communities that experience the greatest disparities and outcomes in our state. And those are these 8 communities. So Indigenous, Asian, Black, Latine, immigrant refugee, LGBTQ plus, people living in greater Minnesota rural areas, and people living with a disability. So based on that information, organizations that are either led by or serving a majority of one of these communities will be prioritized in the decision-making process. And our committee as well applies the intersectional equity framework that LaCora mentioned earlier, with an emphasis on race, right? Because centering the needs and experiences of Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color, that will get us to that equity and justice focus, because those are the communities experiencing the greatest barriers as a result of policies, institutions, and systems. We have a rating sheet as part of the decision-making process. This is a tool used in the decision-making process. It's not a required uh, um, process. We do have all committee members go through a training around similar like this, where they go through what intersectionality looks like at the foundation. But then we provide these kind of tools as a resource where it's a checklist of items where they can ask questions about the organization's information and note any priority areas like the program tracks, and then note where an organization is in alignment with the values and the capacity. So project alignment, intersectionality, leadership, and capacity have its own point system. Again, this is a guide, and it was included as well in the brand guidelines packet. So if you'd like to see what that looks like, you can also refer to that sheet. That will be what the committee members will use in their decision-making process. Lastly, we have our grant reporting requirements, and these are asked at the end. So if you're selected as a grantee, you will be asked at the end of your grant period, sometime in June, July, to report on these two reporting systems. So we have our WFM grant report, and then our girlsBEST program report. This is also a new process at the Women's Foundation. Historically, we've always had a consultant help us with our evaluation, and in the past year, we've been able to increase our team's capacity and hire a director of learning and evaluation. And it's been an incredible experience to be able to take the listening and learning firsthand with our team and implement this process together to really affirm, what the grantee partners own as their outcomes and what we're supporting within that work. So in the grant report, we're asking about your organization overall and your impact overall, rather than like the specific program that you are supporting through this grant fund. And so more information about that we'll share as well in advance. If you are selected, this will all be shared in advance in your grant award package. And then we also have a program report. So this one is specific to your participants' outcomes and activities in the program that's being supported through this grant. And the reason we have separate reporting is because this Girls Best program report helps us really track over the years what has been related to the Girls Best program model. So in doing so, we're able to share with our funders and share with the cohort, right, as community grantee partners to share like what programming has been relevant to your work and highlighting those themes as learnings. So we have the timeline here, which is also shared in the application timeline. We have launched the application this week, and application will close on May 1st at 5 p.m. We'll have the on notifications for the first notifications around if your organization is selected to move forward for a site vi visit. That will be the week of May 25th. And then we have two site visit days to choose scheduling for. So these are going to be short 20, 30-minute site visit meetings, and you will get to select the time that works best for your team to connect with us, either on June 3rd or June 4th between 12 to 4 p.m. So we'll share more about that scheduling process the week of May 25th if you're selected to move forward. And then the week of June 15, after we've conducted the site visits, we will announce the award notifications then on June 15. Grant payments will move forward as soon as we receive all your due diligence. So working with Maria on the back end for getting all your information in. We try to get the grants out as in a 2-week time frame. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. And then, like LaCora mentioned, it's a 1-year grant period that is renewable each year up to 3 years. So that is the grant period will be shared within when you first get your payment grant payment awarded. And then we have a report due at least a month after your grant period ends. Again, you will have a chance to review that report in advance, and you're welcome to submit that as soon as you have the information ready. But the deadline for that will be a month after your grant period ends. For the seed grant timeline, it is very similar to the multi-year grant timeline, with the exception of the site visits. So no site visits are required for seed planning grant applicants. And so you will be, if you're applying in this cohort, your organization will be notified the week of June 15. And again, the same kind of turnaround on the grant due diligence and payments will happen following when we get all your information in. And then all the decisions will be shared as well through our community impact email. So please save this email for any grant communications. We will monitor this email to make sure one of our team members can get back to you as soon as possible. All right. So now I'm excited to share the application. So if you're a current grantee partner listening, I'm excited to share that we've also been implementing a new grant application process. Again, this is part of improving our grant application and reporting process to help applicants, better understand our requirements, but then also to reduce the time needed to complete applications and reports. So this initiative started a while back when we participated in the working groups with the Minnesota Council of Foundations that they helped create a common grant application to be used across all funders in the state to um, really encourage common language across grant applications so that organizations can really not have to, you know, redo a lot of this work. It can be shared across multiple grant programs. And so we started drafting one application for our programs, and we hosted 8 feedback sessions with our participatory grant making members to give us um, their take on what the application process looked like and if they had any recommendations on how to change it. So we, in a result, created this unified application for our grant programs and our general operating support programs. And again, applying the common language from the Minnesota Council of Foundations. And so this grant application is for all, will be used across all our grant programs when funding is available for each program. We are a community foundation, still raising all the dollars. So we will have questions that will remain this unchanged, but then the timeline will vary around when funding is available for grant making. So you will know in the application that there will be a selection of which grant program you're applying for. And at this time, the grant programs available are the girlsBEST C grant and the girlsBEST multi-year grant. So again, this is a session just covering the girlsBEST program because it's the only grant available at this time. But again, if you have questions about the other programs that you see and you're like, wait, I didn't know you all did this work, you're welcome to schedule a meeting with one of us, with me, and just we can talk about any program that you're interested in, and we can share as well when those timelines will be available, so that we can follow up when information is can be shared. And now I'll jump into LaCora to talk us through the application components.
Thank you, Erica. All right, y'all. So our grant application sections have changed. So as Erica mentioned, we really tried to make sure that the Minnesota Common Grant standards were honored in some way in how we were thinking about our new common application. So we have 4 sections. So we want our organizational information, very generic, like who's your org, who's your CEO, address, things like that. And then 2, we have narrative questions. We have about 5 narrative questions, similar to the Minnesota Common Grant. They only have 5 questions. Ours are pretty similar. And then 3, the demographic survey. And then lastly, we have an attachment section. As I said, for the organization information, again, full legal org name, your website, your president and CEO and their pronouns, contact information, your EIN. So just like your basic organizational information, really trying to make sure that this was simple and to the point. Next is our narrative questions. So, one, we are asking about your organization, really copy paste like from other previous applications, just talking about your organization, your mission, your vision, your values, things like that. 2, we have a request summary, so just tell us a little bit more about what you're requesting for the grant. 3, we really want to know about your program goals. What are you trying to achieve? 4, talk a little bit about your impact overall. It doesn't just have to be about the program impact, but overall the organization's impact. And then lastly, we have a question around intersectional equity. And so I talked a little bit about that at the beginning of these slides. We do connect a link to our YouTube about how, again, we talk about intersectional equity and that work. So, like, you can click on that link, watch the video, and then think about how you would answer the question. I want to make a small note about using AI in grant writing. Definitely use it, but we want to make sure that if folks are using AI tools, to make sure that you're checking the tone, the clarity, or grammar that it's using. Also, just know about some privacy concerns. When you upload original research and programming, AI saves that input into AI. So I would say, use it for brainstorming ideas. Remember to fact check everything so that you can protect yourself and your data for your organization. So, one, about your organization. We're asking about your mission statement, again, a brief history of your organization, and then some of the current programs and recent accomplishments or achievements. We really don't want folks to go over 3 to 5 paragraphs. This isn't meant to be really long, but trying to get things to be succinct with limiting everything to about 3,000 characters. In your summary, again, not all grant programs are listed or will be available, but please select the one that you're applying for. So either the seed grant or the multi-year. And again, remember, you can only pick one. You can't be in both of the categories. Question 3 is around program goals. So again, if applying for the Girls Best program, please select one of the program tracks. Erica really did talk about those tracks, either it being academic, entrepreneurial, employment, development slash high paying, high skill careers, or it's anything around public education and advocacy. And we want to know just like, what is your proposed work? How do you think it aligns to the work of the foundation with the funds requested? And if you're trying to adapt work that you already have, talk about that. Or if you're trying to sustain work, please talk about that. We love both. We're not trying to make folks think about, oh, you have to, write something that's new for the foundation for us to notice you. No, you can also write about how are you continuing to sustain your work. I think that's also really important, especially if your work has won awards and things like that. Please talk about how, this work is important to your sustaining the overall work. Question 4 is again about impact. We want you to explain what does success overall look like for the goals stated above? And then how do you think about tracking the impact? So how do you know you're making progress towards the things that you said you were going to be focusing on? Um, again, small 3 to 5 paragraphs. We're not looking for anything longer than that and really trying to limit the characters to 3,000. Here again is where we talk about intersectionality. Again, you'll see that we linked a little video. It's only 2 minutes, so it's not that long. But we are interested in understanding how your organization practices an intersectional equity lens. Relevant information could include some of the following. In what ways does your organization tend to the intersections of gender, race, and ethnicity, place, sovereignty, economic class, age, disability, sexual orientation, and or immigration status of the people it serves? Uh, the video gives us some good context of, again, how we're thinking about this work, but we just want folks to really think about how is the work that you're doing really intersecting. One example that I like to give for folks is that when we talk about safety here at the organization, we really talk about it being the underpinning of our work because if young women and girls and gender expansive folks aren't safe, how are they able to go to school, right? So that intersection with school, or how are they able to go make money and work, or how are they even able to go and take care of themselves, right? Their health, their mental well-being, it's all connected. So just really thinking about how the work that you do has those intersection points and really highlighting what that looks like. Some of the feedback, as Erica mentioned, we had 8 really great informational sessions before we created and started to implement our common application. And one of the feedback pieces that we received, which was wonderful, thank y'all, is that folks also still want to be able to brag about themselves, and be able to give some more information. And so here we have additional questions. They're optional. You do not, again, optional. You do not have to answer anything, but if folks want to continue to talk a little bit more about their work or their program, they're able to also just add a little bit more here. We also have a demographic survey,
Before we
which
go into that one, and
oh,
I'll jump into that one, Lakora, but I
oh,
do want to highlight one question, number 6 here for any current grantee partners that are in the Girls Best program. If you are looking to apply again, we do have one additional question for you, and that's just to describe your outcomes you've achieved so far with your grant, with this recent round. So that one is required for any current grantee in the Girls Best program.
thank you for that call out.
And then for the demographic survey, that's the next section for the application. All the responses to these to this survey is required. It's required because the committee uses them to guide the decision-making process, applying that intersectional equity framework, which addresses race, place, gender, and additional identities. We also use this information for our annual data impact report to track communities that we've reached through all our grant programs. And then lastly, we do recognize that privacy concerns might limit responses to these demographic questions. So we do appreciate any information you can share with us, noting that we understand some may not be available due to that privacy reason. So before you do complete the demographic survey, please carefully review the instructions provided, noting that the numbers given in each demographic section, so for gender, race, etc., the numbers should total the intended people that will be served by the program you're applying for. So the program that's being supported by this grant opportunity rather than the total number of individuals served by your organization. And then we ask for the numbers to be based on the current year you're applying for in this grant. We ask for numeric numbers, numeric data, not percentages. And then for any question that your organization does not track, please answer with either NA or unknown. If you do answer no to any of the tracking questions, for example, if you say no to tracking gender, the system will auto-populate a NA response to any following questions following the gender section. So under women, men, it will show as NA if you choose no for that response. Again, just noting that because it does look very long, the survey, but if you don't track a lot of this information, then you are not required to submit that. And then we have the attachments section. This is also an opportunity to review just a big picture, a holistic review of your organization by providing the financial review from your most recently completed year. So that's including the balance sheet, a statement of activities, any functional expenses. We also ask for a list of your current board members, and if you do have information about their ethnic and racial and gender demographic, that would be great to include. And then if you are applying with a fiscal sponsor, please submit a copy of a signed fiscal sponsorship agreement. So in terms of a full attachment, we do require that financial review and the list of the current board members as required. Again, if you are doing fiscal sponsorship, that's also required. And then for optional items here, if you'd like to provide some supplemental information to support any of your responses in the narrative section. You're welcome to share any links about information that your organization put together, videos, things like that. Not required, but just optional for to better support your work and just the overall picture of your organization. So here's a run through in summary, the application checklist. So completing the organization's information, narrative questions, any additional questions if you're a current grantee partner, the demographic survey, uploading your organizational's financial review and the current board list, and then if you have a fiscal sponsor, having that fiscal sponsorship agreement. Okay, and now I'll pass it to Hannah to run through the grant portal access.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Hanny Elias. I am the database manager here at the foundation. So I'm going to quickly give you some tips and tricks on how to apply for this in our grant portal. So first of all, if you have not used our grant portal before, you are going to want to register as a first-time user. We do review all account creation requests as they come in, so we uh, kindly and firmly ask that you create an account days in advance because we do have to review and approve it before you actually have access to the grant portal. So please, if you are interested in this application, please, after this is done, just sign on, create a profile, and I will go in and review it within the next day and get it approved. Another tip I would say is that our portal works best with Google Chrome or Firefox as a browser. And when you are signing up as a first-time user, you will want to use, it'll ask you for what role you want to use in the portal, and you're going to want to select grant applicant. There is also an option for an individual applicant, but you will want grant applicant as that is the role used to apply on behalf of organizations. And we also ask that you accept terms and conditions when you are creating your portal account. And we have a lovely screenshot here of what that will look like when you are signing up. And we also will have eligibility questions that you'll want to answer when you do actually have access to the application. We'll get to that in a little bit. But again, make sure to just go into the portal, create an account, um, and we'll complete the review in about 1 to 2 business days. For our eligibility questions, we touched on this earlier in the conversation, but there will be 6 that you will be asked to answer before you have access to the application. It is essentially the first page of the application that you'll see in the portal, and they're all yes or no questions. So the 6 questions are listed here on this slide, and essentially if you answer no to any of them, then you are unfortunately not eligible for a grant from the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. If you do become eligible, we more than welcome a new application. So these 6 questions are, is your organization or group a legally incorporated entity with 501(c)(3) or 501(c)(4) status, or do you have a fiscal sponsor, or are you a tribal nation, tribal entity? Yes or no. Is your organization based in Minnesota and carries out its work there? Is your organization or program primarily focused on serving women, girls, and gender expansive folks in Minnesota? Are you an inclusive organization which does not discriminate against individuals from historically marginalized communities? Is your organization open to all people regardless of religious orientation and does not promote a specific religious ideology? And finally, the Women's Foundation of Minnesota is a pro-choice organization. Can you confirm that your organization does not discourage people from accessing a full range of reproductive and sexual health choices? Again, all yes or no questions. We pose these all to you at the beginning of the application, and then we review your answers. And if you answer yes to all of them, we send you an email and we let you know we've reviewed and the rest of the application is available to you. You'll be notified when we do finish our review of the eligibility questions. You'll be notified via communityimpact@wfm.org. Again, that was a email that was noted earlier in our conversation. We do ask that you save that into your email address book so it doesn't go to spam. If you are not approved of your eligibility questions, if you have one of those that is no or more, you will not be approved and you will get an email about that. And you can also ask Erica if you have any questions. Erica will be CC'd on that email to you. And then you are always welcome to reach out to me if you are in the portal and you're like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do here. I'm here to help. I'm here to guide. Happy, happy, happy to always answer questions about that. So, let's say you have registered and you're waiting to get into the portal. Once you're registered and you've put in all your information, your portal homepage is going to look like this. And it's going to have that message that I was talking about earlier, where we do have to review your portal account before you have access to the entire thing. So Your portal home screen will look like this. You'll get an email from one of us in about 1 to 2 business days just saying we've reviewed your account. You now have access to the full portal. And once you have access to the portal, you're going to want to know how to get to that application and find those eligibility questions and answer the whole app and complete the whole application. There's a few different ways to do this. One, you can go onto the grant applicant homepage. You'll see a drop-down menu that says applicant, and you can select home. And then on this grant applicant homepage, there is a tile that's labeled featured applications, and this WFM grant application for programs link will be listed there. Or you can also go to the grant applicant drop down menu and go to available grants rather than your homepage. And the WFM grant application for programs link will also be listed on the available grants page. And again, to reiterate, once you access that application, the first thing you'll see are those eligibility questions that you'll be asked to fill out. We'll review them. If you are approved, then we'll let you know, and then the rest of the application becomes available for you. I do know that there was a request for me to share, screen share for the application portal. Is that Erica Lacora? Is that something you want us to take some time for?
I think I want to take this opportunity for questions because we're at 5 minutes left.
Okay, great.
And then if we, yeah, any portal questions like Hannah shared can be reached out to Hannah. So,
Mhm.
LaCora, I'll let you take the lead here for questions.
Thank you. So again, our application closes on May 1st at 5 p.m. If you have questions related to the grant proposal or anything like that, please contact Erica Udrova Cuesta. If you are interested in like just meeting with staff, we do have a schedule a virtual meeting with us. So you can meet with Erica or myself. And then if you have grant portal questions, like you're trying to access it or you lost your password or something like that, those questions all go to Hannah. So please contact her. And then if you're still interested in learning about who have we granted to before or previous grantee partners, we've also linked our previous cohort 7 in here for you as well. And now we are at 5 minutes left, and we want to make sure we keep it tight, tight, double tight, as I like to say, and keep everyone on time. So we just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And if you have questions, either put them in a chat or you can come off mute. Oh, and I see Vanessa, you have, in terms of financials for the organization, are large orgs deemed more favorable than smaller organizations with much less financials? No, we don't hold a larger organization or a smaller organization as better or greater. It's really going to come down to the grant rating sheet, which is going to ask specifically around those intersectional equity questions. What are you going to do with the funds that are given? The financials are just to make sure that everyone is financially sound and things like that. So we review the financials, we want to review the budget, but it's really how you're going to answer those narrative questions. Thank you, Emily, for asking your questions in the chat. Any other questions? We're here for a little bit, so I don't want to rush folks, but I want to make sure those that are here get what they need. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Vanessa. This was a good webinar. Team holding it down. So wonderful. If there are no other questions from Christina or Vanessa, feel free to leave or to send us an email this if something kind of pops up later for you.